Our story begins in Ireland in the year 1985. We meet our protagonist, Bill, a coal merchant. We learn that Bill is married with 5 daughters and lives a stable life, but we also learn that during this period, Ireland was under the control of Catholic rule, and they dominated every single thing in the country. In this charged atmosphere, a group of institutions known as the Magdalene Institutions emerged. These places would take in girls and women who became pregnant illegitimately, lock them up inside, and force them to serve the church for the rest of their lives. After that, they would take the children they bore illegitimately and offer those children up for adoption. This, from their perspective, was the only way for the women to atone for their sins. And of course, these girls were subjected daily to the most extreme forms of humiliation, yet no one was able to object. On this day, we see Bill going about his usual work. He takes the bags of coal and begins distributing them to every house in the city, until he reaches the convent and leaves their coal bag in the storage shed. It's here that he witnesses a horrific scene, a mother dragging her daughter who had sinned with a young man, trying to force her into the convent. The girl keeps screaming, begging her mother to have mercy and not leave her in that place. But the mother refuses to listen to her. At that moment, a nun comes, takes the girl, and drags her inside against her will. Bill is completely stunned by the sight and feels terrible for the girl, but there's nothing in his power he can do. Bill gets back in his truck to continue his work, but the whole way he keeps thinking about the girl he just saw. By chance, he spots a child walking alone on the road. Bill stops his truck, gets out, and asks the child if he is Matt's son. The boy confirms that he is. We learn that this Matt is an alcoholic, and because of his addiction, he lost his family. Bill feels deep empathy for the child because he lived through a similarly harsh childhood. Bill pulls some money from his pocket and gives it to him, telling him to never hesitate if he needs any help. He then gets back in his truck and drives away. That night, Bill returns home. He goes to the bathroom and thoroughly washes his hands to remove the traces of coal. Then he goes to greet his wife, Eileen, and his daughters and sits down with them to have dinner together. His daughters start showing him what they did in school that day, and Bill is incredibly happy with them because they are excelling in their studies. During dinner, Bill tells them he saw Matt's son today and gave him money. His wife scolds him, saying he shouldn't have given him any money because the boy will likely spend it all on his alcoholic father. Later that night, after everyone is asleep, we see that Bill can't sleep from thinking so much. He gets up and sits alone in the living room, reflecting on his own childhood memories. We discover that Bill himself lived a very harsh childhood because of his mother. This was because she had him illegitimately. Naturally, her family couldn't accept the situation, so they sent both her and her son to the Magdalene Institutions. However, after some time, his mother managed to escape and went to work for a kind woman named Mrs. Wilson. She and her son lived under Mrs. Wilson's care for the rest of her life. We flash back to Bill as a child getting bullied at school because of his mother. Mrs. Wilson sits with him to try and understand what happened, but he refuses to tell her anything. She then asks him what he'd like for Christmas. He tells her he wants a jigsaw puzzle. Mrs. Wilson tells him to send a letter to Santa with the gift he wants, assuring him it will definitely come. We return to the present day with Bill. We see him walking with his wife and daughters through the town, looking at the Christmas decorations together. After they get home, they prepare dinner and start writing letters to Santa, listing the things they want this year. One of his daughters asks him what gift he wanted Santa to bring him when he was little. Bill tells her he always wanted a jigsaw puzzle. After the girls go to sleep, Bill sits with his wife. She asks him if he's still in touch with Ned. He tells her they lost contact ever since his mother died. We learn here that Ned was his mother's lover. This whole situation caused Bill a crisis from a young age. He was relentlessly bullied because of it, not to mention that his mother had a very bad reputation in town. His wife suggests he invite Ned for dinner sometime, but Bill rejects the idea. His wife then asks him what gift he wants this year. She notices that he's been quiet and reserved for a while, and asks if he's okay. Bill tries to hide his feelings and assures her he's fine, just a bit stressed from work. He then asks her Are you worried, like I am? Because lately he's been feeling overly anxious and can't stop thinking. His wife tells him she is a bit worried about their expenses, which have increased recently. She advises him to try and sleep at night because she's noticed he stays awake all night, and this is only making him more anxious and tense. We flash back again to Bill's childhood. We see him excitedly opening his Christmas present, only to be crushed when he sees his mother got him a different gift than the one he wanted. He drops the gift and walks away, standing alone and crying because he never got the one thing he wished for. Ned follows him and comforts him, promising that he will get him the jigsaw puzzle next year. We return to the present, with Bill crying as he remembers all of this. As usual, Bill can't sleep. He gathers his clothes and goes to start his workday early. During his break, he goes to meet his daughter, Kathleen, who helps him with the business. He asks if any of the young men are bothering her or giving her a hard time. Kathleen denies it, assuring him she's fine and comfortable at her job. Bill tells her to let him know immediately if anyone bothers her. It's clear that Bill is terrified for his daughters. He doesn't want them to make the same mistake his mother made, a mistake he has paid the price for his entire life. Later, Bill goes to continue distributing the coal bags. When he arrives at the convent, he enters the storage shed to drop off the bags. At that moment, he hears the sound of girls screaming from inside the convent. Their screams affect him deeply. He wishes he could do anything for them, but he can't. Bill takes the invoices and enters the convent to collect payment for the goods he delivered. As he walks in, he watches the girls working against their will. A nun approaches him and aggressively asks him what he's doing here. He tells her he's here to drop off the invoices. The nun tells him to go to Sister Carmel's room to get his payment. She then leaves him. Bill continues walking through the convent. Suddenly, a girl runs up to him, completely hysterical and crying. She begs him to help her escape the institution, saying she can no longer stand the humiliation and torture she endures every day. Bill just stands there, frozen, in shock, unable to do anything for her. Just then, the nun arrives and yells at the girl. She then escorts Bill out of the convent to pay him and orders him not to enter the convent again without permission. Bill apologizes and tells her it won't happen again. That night, Bill returns home, heartbroken. He can't forget the sight of the girls he saw and how they are subjected daily to the worst kinds of degradation and humiliation. At that moment, his memory flashes back. He remembers playing in front of his house with his ball. He was horrified when he found his mother dead right in front of him. It was clear she had been suffering from a chronic illness. From that day on, Mrs. Wilson decided to take Bill in and care for him, as he had no one else left. When Bill snaps out of his memories, he sits with his wife and tells her about the girl who begged him for help at the convent today. He tells her he feels awful about himself because he wasn't able to help her, but his wife admonishes him, telling him it's none of his business, as he knows full well that nobody can defy the convent's orders. Bill replies that their silence on the matter is hurting so many girls, and he asks, how long are we supposed to stay silent about this injustice? His wife tells him that if he wants to live a normal life in Ireland, he must remain silent and not object to anything happening around him. She reminds him that they have daughters to raise, and if they even think about helping the girls in the convent, they could get into serious trouble, or the church might even try to hurt their daughters. We flash back to Bill's past. He's sitting with Mrs. Wilson, deeply depressed after his mother's death. Mrs. Wilson consoles him and reassures him that he will stay living with her until he's grown. Bill asks her about his father's whereabouts. She is visibly shaken by his question and can't answer him. She leaves the room. We return to the present. We see Bill taking out all his anger on his work. When he returns home, he stays up all night thinking about the father he knows nothing about. It's clear his father's absence still affects him to this day. The next day, Bill takes the coal truck to deliver coal to the convent. As soon as he enters the storage shed, he is shocked to find Sarah, the girl who begged for help, locked inside, alone and hysterical. It's obvious the convent is punishing her and has had her locked in here for some time. The moment Bill sees her, he is deeply moved and tries to calm her down. Sarah tells him she is pregnant with an illegitimate child and is due in 5 months. But the convent plans to take her baby and offer it for adoption. Bill is horrified by what he hears. The girl looks far too young for any of this. He doesn't know how to help her, especially since her own family brought her here against her will, and they would certainly never let her return home. This means this girl has nowhere else to go but the convent. Bill decides to take her and bring her back to the main convent building. Just then, Mother Mary, the head of the convent, arrives. She orders the nuns to take Sarah, give her a bath, and get her clean clothes. Then Mother Mary invites Bill to have tea with her in her office. Bill nervously follows her into the office and sits down. Mother Mary asks about his well-being and his family's. He tells her they are all fine. She then asks about his eldest daughter's studies. He tells her she's graduating from school this year and plans to go to college. At this, Mother Mary reminds him that all of his daughters were educated and went to school thanks to her, because all the schools in the country are under the control of the Catholic Church. It's painfully clear that Mother Mary is threatening him, albeit indirectly. She is implying that she could strip his daughters of their education if he ever thinks of opening his mouth or saying anything about what he saw today. Just then, Sarah is brought into the room, looking terrified. It's obvious the nuns have punished her for what she did. Mother Mary orders Sarah to explain to Bill what she was doing in the coal shed. Sarah, trembling, says she was playing with her friend and they locked her in the shed by accident. It is blatantly obvious she is lying and that they coached her to say this in front of Bill. Of course, Bill knows the whole truth. He knows they locked her in the shed, but he stays silent, knowing his words won't change anything. Suddenly, Sarah breaks down crying, unable to speak the truth. Mother Mary orders the nuns to return her to her room. Then, Mother Mary gets an envelope, puts money in it, and hands it to Bill, a bribe for his silence. At first, Bill refuses to take the money, but Mother Mary insists on giving him the envelope. Bill finally takes the envelope and walks out of her office, completely stunned. As he leaves, he sees Sarah. He runs over to her and tells her the address of the place where he works. He tells her to come find him there if she needs any help. But just then, the nun comes, shouts at him, and forcibly throws him out of the convent. The next day, Bill attends Mother Mary's sermon at the church. She speaks about forgiveness and mercy. Bill sits there knowing full well that she is a hypocrite who doesn't practice a single word of the doctrine she preaches. But attendance is mandatory. Everyone must go to church every week as they are all under Mother Mary's control. At the end of the day, Bill returns home and finds his wife waiting for him. She tells him she ran into Mother Mary today, and Mother Mary told her she had sent an envelope with money for her. Bill gets nervous. He had no intention of ever spending that money, but he's forced to tell her where the envelope is. His wife is overjoyed when she sees the money, as it will solve a major financial problem for them. Bill, on the other hand, is disgusted. The next morning, Bill decides to go visit Ned at his home. He's the only person who reminds him of his mother. However, he learns from one of Ned's relatives that he fell ill and was taken to the hospital. At the end of the day, Bill goes to a pub to try and forget his troubles. But the entire time, he can't stop thinking about Sarah and feeling terrible for her. The pub owner notices he's upset and goes to talk to him. She tells him she heard about what happened at the convent. She advises him to stay out of it, warning him that he could get himself into a lot of trouble he can't handle. First, he would be depriving his daughters of their education, and he could also lose his job. Bill thanks her for the advice and leaves. Naturally, he isn't convinced by a single word she said. Afterward, he goes to a shoe store to buy a Christmas present for his wife.
On the way, he stops at the barber shop to get a haircut. He remembers when Ned used to take him to the barber when he was little. Ned would always play with him so he wouldn't feel like an orphan. Even though Bill was deeply attached to Ned, he was the only father he ever knew. At the same time, he feels resentment toward him. Because of Ned, his mother got a reputation for having a lover. Because of this, Bill lived a terribly cruel childhood, was bullied daily, and was called the most horrible names.
We return to the present. Bill is devastated after remembering all these memories. He walks alone through the street, unable to stop thinking about Sarah. He suddenly turns and goes back to the convent, where he finds they still have Sarah locked in the shed. The girl is freezing and shivering. He approaches her and asks her to come with him, promising that he will protect her. Sarah stands up with him, but when she remembers what they might do to her, she's terrified and sinks back onto the floor. Bill begs her not to be afraid of anything as long as he is with her. He takes her hand and helps her up. Then he takes her and they walk out of the shed. Halfway down the road, Sarah collapses on the ground and just sobs, remembering all the torment she endured during her time in the convent. Bill takes her in his arms and reassures her that everything will be okay. They continue on their way until they reach the front of Bill's house. When they arrive, Sarah is afraid to go in. She knows his family will surely not accept her among them, but Bill takes her hand and reassures her. He then goes to introduce her to his family and announces his decision. He will consider Sarah one of his own daughters, and she will live with them for the rest of her life. In the end, we learn that this film is based on true events. We learn that from the year 1922 to 1988, more than 56,000 girls were sent to the Magdalene institutions. They would take the children from their mothers and offer them for adoption in exchange for large sums of money. This tragic situation continued for many long years. However, after some time, the government issued an order banning the Magdalene institutions. And here, the film ends.